But if I try to walk through this journey of my life, always trying to meet the standards set by people who are in um, majoritized groups, I would never make it. I would always fail. Um, and I think for me, it has taken some time, especially as I get further into my career and my life and thinking about what are the things that I want out of this life. How do I want to live a life well lived? It's no longer subscribing to what whiteness and capitalism has told me that I should want. It's being able to choose what it is.
We all got an opinion, but can you back yours up? Where you get your sources from? Hope that don't got you stuck. We gon' check you and your understanding of knowledge. That's regardless if you finished school or went to college. Not everything is as black and white as it seems. This show here is about expressing what you mean. Whether you get canceled or whether you get played. Welcome to the Cancel Podcast with Elliot and Jay.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cancel Podcast, where we aim to challenge one's own thoughts by bringing unique, creative, and potentially divisive topics to the table for discussion. As always, it's your boy Darius, aka Jay Sarad, representing Legendary Media Group, and today I'm joined by two special guests, Mr. Jason Kreitz and Mrs. Michaela Mickey Mobley. So, today's topic is going to cover implicit bias, prejudice, and things around that nature to kind of see what's it like to interact in the world on a day-to-day basis from our various walks of life. So I want to start things off by asking both of you, what brought you into this topic for today? Like, where is your interest in it?
Which one? Who should start? Mickey, do you want to go? Go for it. Go for it.
I will. I can go. So this topic is basically like my work. It is the stuff that I'm passionate about. And I come through that passion because it truly is my lived experience. So what does it mean for me as a Black, queer, plus size woman to exist in this world that vehemently hates anybody who is not cis, white, straight, and male? And so because I'm very passionate about breaking down those stereotypes, those barriers, helping people to unlearn implicit biases and explicit biases, so that we can live in a world in which everyone has what they need in order to thrive. So that's what brought me here. And because, I like you, you're great.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I'm also looking forward, so since it is part of like your research area, I'm looking forward to kind of having that perspective of like the academia approach as well as to like the personal approach. I think that's going to be very unique. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
So Jason, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, kind of on the converse, I am a cis white passing male. I'm half Asian, half white. And I grew up in like the musical theater community, basically. So I was surrounded by, my sisters are somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum. I don't know exactly, where they are, but they're somewhere in there. And then queer, I guess is just kind of the general term, but I grew up with people, best friends gay, and grew up with people who identified as being queer like throughout my whole life. But for me, I never really related on a personal level to that experience, and so I have a lot of implicit bias that I've recognized in myself, and that I've had to kind of confront in a personal level. On top of that, I'm also interested in like behavioral psychology, and like in my time in therapy, there are certain things that like we kind of hold onto for ourselves that aren't necessarily related to prejudice, but just related to just the way we view the world. That implicit bias is like so central to all of that. So it's kind of like all around, all encompassing for me, and it's something that I have to confront on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, I actually like that too, because so it sounds like with your experience, it's more so of recognizing how you've kind of lived through the experiences through others. That's what I'm kind of hearing, like how you've had
because I don't,
biases and
dude, I don't know, right? Like my thing is I'm short. That's it.
Okay, so I look forward to like breaking this down some too, because So I wonder if there's a way that we can introduce you to a lot of implicit bias that you may not have come across before as well. And even like with Mickey as well, there's probably some that, we get to learn from each other, all being different, like from our walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to start it off with is so there's a bunch of different definitions for stereotypes that I came across. So I decided to combine them in a way that I felt really got the message across. So the definition I came up with for stereotypes is an oversimplification of a group's complex and diverse identity, which leads to the misrepresentation of the individuals belonging to that group. And these stereotypes can be based on sex, gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, age, socioeconomic class, and more. And so with that definition, I wanted to know, like, what are some stereotypes that each of you have kind of, come across, like, and have they been placed on to you by others? Like, were they strangers? Were they loved ones? Or on the other side, like, have you accidentally placed stereotypes on others as well? Because we all have some sort of bias, like everyone does, just from our upbringing. But yeah, what are each one of your experiences and thoughts on that?
I would say yes to both things.
Yeah.
I think that especially for people who hold marginalized identities, we sometimes feel like that we can't stereotype or have presence and prejudices against other people, which is wrong. I mean, it's absolutely wrong, because we've all been socialized, especially if we think about like Americans, we've been socialized in this country, which is the very foundation was violence and trauma and racism and genocide. So we've all grown up here, even though we may have different cultural backgrounds. So like, I would say for me, some of the stereotypes that have been put on me, one being Black and woman, sometimes you're being both, you can be seen as poor or stupid or just not as intelligent, because being at the intersection of Black and woman, we are sometimes both hypersexualized and desexualized, where you're seen as both a mammy and a Jezebel. I think getting into the layers of kind of like my ethnic background, being Caribbean, some of the jokes that not only white Americans, but sometimes Black Americans have said about me, being called coconut Black because I'm not like African American. I'm a different kind of Black, or that we all live in huts and whatever the other stereotypes that may come up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a wild world out there. And then I think about like even what it means to be plus size, like to be a bigger person, that you are, a slob and, you don't work out or you're not healthy. And, I don't have to prove my health to anybody. Like, exactly. I'm the healthiest person I know, for a person that works out 5 days a week. And I can probably, I don't have to prove that though to anyone. But I think on the flip side of it, being able to think about what are the stereotypes that I've put on people. And I think a lot of my work, especially as I've gone through like my identity or like my work as an organizer and activist, is seeing people who have, identities of power. So people who are white and male and straight or rich, like, we put a lot of things on other people because they're different from us. And we have these stereotypes that, all rich people are like, some evil like Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
I've never met.
Okay, but Jeff Bezos is probably the worst one to throw in there.
True. But like, like every person is Jeff Bezos in my life, or or even people who make even just a little, like when you think about, like, I grew up working class, and then now as a person who has a master's degree and a level of education that has provided me some money, even people who make like 6 figures to me, I'm just like, damn, y'all rich. Yeah. And 6 figures is, in comparison to what somebody like Jeff Bezos makes, is still, but it's still very minimal. Yeah. But like we put these stereotypes on other people. Like, there was a time in my life that I was very mistrustful of all men. And I think that, because of different things that have happened to me in my life that have been perpetrated by men, I have to be, I don't have to be, but I am cautious of men who I don't know. But I can't say that every man is someone that's going to harm me or hurt me in some way. you have to give a chance to know people. So
Right.
those are some of the ways I kind of see how those things have played out in my life.
So it's
That's
kind of
really
good that you kind of took away from like the absolutes and starting to remove yourself from like it's either all this or none of that. Like it sounds like you're starting to realize that, you know, there are cases in every situation.
One could say that my therapist is doing a good job, that my all or none thinking, that I can now get away from all or none thinking and see that there are shades of gray.
Okay, I like that, because I think growing up we're always taught like some regards like the binary approach is easier. Like that's why we try to do that in so many different ways. Like it's either this
Absolutely.
or that,
Yeah.
because it takes away like an aspect of, you know, it takes an aspect of critical thinking away from how we are in nature.
Absolutely.
So,
well, just to kind of go with that, I mean, the first thing that I thought was interesting, Mickey, was on some level, it all comes from like personal experience and to some extent, like personal trauma.
Yeah.
Right. Like
absolutely.
negative experiences that we have, like with other people or with certain experiences, certain places, that leaves a print on you. Right. And so it's not like something that you can just throw away. Right. And so like on a personal level, I think, I mean, we are kind of challenged to face that binary that we're given and just be like, hey, people are people. We just kind of exist. We're just kind of here. And so we have to work with everything that we're given in order to at least make, you know, the people that we interact with, like feel safe and comfortable. But I think like, you know, shoot, I forgot where I was going with this. You said something and I was like, oh dude, I'm gonna take this, but I completely forgot where I was going with this. Never mind. But
well, I'll say like so Jason, what about you in terms of like you know, how has like stereotyping and bias kind of like affected your life as well?
So okay. So I've kind of had like a unique experience growing up because I was a performer and I was a good performer when I was a kid. And so I had the experience of being in front of a lot of people from a very young age. And I realized that I would do everything based on the perception of how people saw me, right? And so that was ingrained in me from a very young age that I've really had to kind of, you know, take away. I actually had to like sit down and just kind of center myself before this, because I was like, okay, you know, I shouldn't really care about what people are thinking about who ends up watching this, because like I should just talk, right? It's just a conversation with a friend. And Mickey, you're now a friend too. So just conversation with two friends.
I love it.
And like, yeah, I just kind of have to recognize that that's just what it is and not place that on me. But the stereotype for me ends up being a lot more towards perfectionism. And so, especially being an Asian male, I think that is one of the stereotypes that you can kind of play into. But dude, I had it again. You said something earlier and it was like, dang it. It was about dichotomy. Oh, you said when you're dealing with these binary choices, it's like the false dichotomy that's presented with like the political system, or like you have to be right or wrong, and it doesn't allow for shades of gray. What I'm kind of realizing, especially now with like the age of social media that we're in and the age of like rapid information that we're in, is we're relieved of this ability to make choices in our life. Right. Yeah. And I think by being provided a false dichotomy, it's so easy to remove the need to actually make a choice. Because you don't have to critically think about anything, but you don't have to take any risk, right? Like, what if I'm wrong? And I think that's kind of where a lot of this comes into, because it's like, I'm surrounded by racists in my family. I don't want to be wrong. So I'm also going to be racist, right? Even if like deep down, I know it's wrong. Like there's pressure, not just from society, like wherever I'm from, if it's in like the South or something like that.
It's like the internalized like community standard.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And so there's a lot of pressure to conform to that binary, because it takes so much effort and even a bit of pain and a lot of risk in a lot of cases to really put yourself out there and recognize like, hey, there is a lot of gray in this. Like not everything that I've been told up to now is true, but all of it is false. Like I've got to sift through it and make these decisions for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'll say so. One term I want to see. Are you familiar with? So are you familiar with code switching, Jason? Because it
Yes,
sounds
100%.
okay.
100%.
Okay, because that's what it kind of sounds like. You're getting at it first, like when you're saying like from your upbringing and everything.
Yeah.
It's like due to the perfectionism, you would have to code switch to kind of cater towards whichever audience was in
Oh
attendance
yeah.
at that time.
I mean, also I'm half, so I'm half Filipino, half white, but I'm second
Mhm.
generation Filipino, right? Or third generation. I don't know how generations even work because like
Okay.
my mom's American, but like she was born in the Philippines, but I don't know. So I'm like somewhere between second and third generation.
Okay.
And so she was raised in America. I was raised in America. So it's like I don't really connect to my Filipino American friends whose family is, directly from the
Like
Philippines.
still in the Philippines.
Yeah. Stephanie, my girlfriend, she's half Japanese, but she is very connected to her Japanese identity. I'm not very connected to my Filipino identity. So I have to code switch with my family, my Filipino family, my Filipino American friends, with my white friends. It's just like, and then to an extent, like I do the same thing with my black friends and to my LGBTQA plus friends, right? It's like there's certain ways of like reading audience that I grew up learning and needing to make sure that I don't make anybody uncomfortable. That's like really important for me. But two, also like being able to actually connect in genuine ways, it's hard. And I'm realizing like, again, I need to put myself out there in terms of like, not needing to present myself in certain ways where it's like being genuine is facing those implicit biases that I have on a day-to-day basis that I've made of other people saying, hey, I have to code switch, hey, I have to like conform to where they're at, because those aren't necessarily real either, right? Those are all implicit biases that I have in my head too.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, because a lot of the decision making that we make is reliant on those biases that we have, like as we go into those general spaces.
Yeah.
Because like I know, so like since Mickey was on a previous episode too, one thing with Mickey that we would always discuss is like you're very like authentic. So like I would say, like, have you ever had to like code switch, or do you mostly just kind of present yourself in a way that says like this is me, kind of embrace it, deal with it, kind of thing?
I think that I'm in a place in my life right now where let's go and continue that train of thought. I'm in a place in my life right now where I think of code switching a bit differently, where I see code switching as an invitation as to who I am. So there are some people who know who the authentic Mickey is, because I've invited you. We are in community with one another. We have a relationship with one another. So I have invited you to know who the authentic me is. There are certain places that don't need my authenticity. They don't deserve it. So I see things such as like my job. My job does not need, my regional accent. They don't deserve that. That is a sacred thing. My Maryland, Baltimore accent, like that's something sacred to me and my community. You don't need to be invited into that. I think of those types of things, where I have to, in certain situations, and maybe I need to be a bit more reserved, or I'm a little bit more laid back. But you've also seen me in a work environment when I'm with students, like it's a party. We came here to get paid, but we also came here to have a good time, even though we at work. But that's because I have a different relationship with my students than I do with my colleagues. I choose to code switch because I see it as me being, I will only be my authentic self around the people that deserve my authenticity. There are some places, there are some avenues of our society, especially those spaces in society that are not welcoming of me. Why would I be my authentic self to you? You don't deserve that. So I think that's how I've started thinking about code switching now. And that is how I understand it as a tactic of survival. And I also hear what Jason is saying about, wearing, it's kind of like wearing the many faces or wearing the many hats. And I believe it was W.E.B. Du Bois who said that it was like kind of like a double consciousness. Like you're very much aware of what you are and who you are and where, like at all times, and who's looking at you. And he speaks to like the exhaustion of that. And I even felt that in Jason and some of the words and some of the things you were saying, like the exhaustion behind that. So yeah, I think that code switching can be both an exhausting process. And I think that's why it's so important to that you have those spaces in which you can be your authentic self. And knowing that your authentic self is solely for who you want to invite into that being with you.
So I know this episode isn't about identity or anything like that, but I do love.
It kind of is, though. I'll say it kind of.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not off topic by any means.
But I do love how you regarded your authenticity as sacred, and you view that as something that's like core to your being, but that it's sacred. I don't know. I just really like that word choice, and I like that it means so much to you on like a personal level.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, because I look at it too, like the way Mickey was saying it, it's like it's much more of a there's a lot more value like held behind it too. Because like I love that she mentioned the aspect of it being like a survival tactic. Because I do want to talk on that a little bit too. Because it seems like with code switching, because I'm sure I do it as well. Mine is probably more subconscious instead of actual like conscious code switching. But I think with that aspect of survival, it's what allows us all to flourish in our own biases as well as the biases of society.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think when you go into subconscious code switching, it just means that you've been doing it so much. It was conscious at some point that you just stop paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it becomes naturalized. It becomes a part of you essentially. But it's like it's interesting to know it because that's the biases that we had to deal with on a day-to-day to kind of present this image of ourselves to optimize that situation, to kind of say like if you look at it from a business term, like how can I get the best ROI from this interaction with this individual versus with this individual? If you look at each one of our interactions as like an investment of our time, our energy, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that.
That's tiring though.
It is.
So tiring.
Just got off the clock, just got on my chill. Called on my homie Brent to see what be the deal. What you trying to do? I'm just trying to heal. Hella floated, never bloated's what I'm trying to feel. Hop in the whip and